Hello you. I hope you're having a wonderful day and that you're taking some time to relax right now. Clear your mind. Settle in. Deep breaths. And let's begin. I'm going to read some of this wee book to you. The Little Book of Mindfulness. Focus. Focus. Slow down. Slow down. That's it. That's it. And de-stress. De-stress. I like this fabric feel to the book. Nice ASMR trigger. Okay. When you're on a journey, it is certainly helpful to know where you're going. But remember, the only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step that you're taking at this moment. That's all there ever is. At first, mindfulness can seem like an intangible concept. However, practicing mindfulness is quite simply the act of concentrating on your breathing. Are you breathing deeply? Being aware of your breath and being aware of what is going on around you in the present moment. The more you do it, the more the simplicity of it becomes clear and its benefits manifold. It lightens the mind and the spirit. Focusing your thoughts. Do you tend to get so focused on the goal that you want to achieve that you lose touch with what you're doing right now to get there? I know that I've fallen victim to this in the past. My mind pushing me towards my goals, telling me that I need to work harder and that it'll be enough when I reach this milestone. But spoiler alert, it never is. So I have been trying to take it one step at a time, enjoying the thing that I'm doing now, rather than postponing happiness. Do you rush through activities without being really attentive to the point that you never quite reach that goal? Yeah, that's another good point. Make sure you're fully present in whatever you're doing, regardless of what you have to do later that day, tomorrow, by giving something your full attention. Then that's when you'll be able to do it to the best of your ability and you'll reap future rewards from that effort. So basically just focus on every step, on the foundations, on watering that seed. Okay, so a lot of this book is quotations and little reminders regarding various mindfulness points. Okay. William James said, "Human beings, by changing the inner attitude of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives." And this book says, people can benefit from mindfulness, whether they have a specific problem or not. Developing greater awareness can open us up to seeing how the mind becomes entangled in and blinded by its own liking and disliking, pursuing and rejecting when we try to maximize our happiness. Mindfulness helps us see with greater clarity how we may approach our moment-by-moment experience skillfully, taking more pleasure in the good things that often go unnoticed or unappreciated, and dealing more effectively with the difficulties we encounter, both real and imagined. I liked that line about developing a greater awareness can open us up to seeing how the mind becomes entangled in and blinded by its own liking and disliking, pursuing and rejecting when we try to maximize our happiness. For me, that sits alongside the idea that we should withhold judgment. Our minds like to judge, label and name, particularly before we know the whole story. And like this little passage here, by deciding what we think of something based on our preferences and rejecting that which we don't want because we're trying to maximize happiness, I think this could be really simple. When you book into a hotel, you can either look at all the nice things that are in the room, or if your mind goes immediately to the things that are wrong, and then you get annoyed and start complaining and get really frustrated. Unless you're actually going to change your room, then that frustration is only just making you feel bad. And it's because your mind has an idea of what should be and what shouldn't be. That's a judgment. And that judgment is based on our past experiences. But it really can hinder us in the moment from enjoying what is actually good. And I think we have been conditioned that way. We have so much available at our fingertips in terms of convenience that we expect it wherever we go. But trying to see the beauty in all these perhaps unsavoury things, we'll be the ones that benefit. I think if you're unhappy about something, as I quickly touched upon, then you're completely well within your right, and I think it's valid to try and improve the situation. So if you really did, taking this hotel example, if you really did feel dismayed at the room you were offered in the hotel, then you could speak to the concierge or the reception and get a new room. But if you complain without doing anything and allow that disappointment to fester and create an annoyance within you, then that's not so good. So just trying to be a wee bit mindful with these things and not to pass judgment immediately. I don't know if that's a good example that I gave. I wanted to keep it light because I do understand that the danger with some mindfulness, if if it's explained in the wrong way, or if it's explained during a serious time within your life, a time of hardship or some big challenge, it can feel minimizing to your problems, as in if I'm just saying, just don't worry about it, just don't get stressed, that's not helpful. But with the wee things, that's where you start practicing, so that when big challenges come your way, well, you've already practiced a little bit. You know how to reframe. You know how to take that half a step back. Withhold judgment for a moment. Look at what's good and then try and change your outlook. I like this little book. Let's have another look. So, a quote from Lao Tzu: "We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want." Eastern meditation likens the pot to the body. So what we put into it, food, and what we fill our minds with, thoughts, is entirely up to us. So it is important and helpful to dwell on this when practicing mindfulness. Okay. Then a little bullet point section here. Only 10% of our stress is due to what happens, whereas 90% is due to how we think about what happens. I get that. The amount of times I've been stressed, worried that a certain outcome will transpire, and then it just doesn't. I was worried for nothing. And that did happen quite a few times in my early 20s. So, if you've got something coming up that's causing you stress, then sit and thinking about it now. Thinking about the worst case scenario and worrying about that. Well, you're worrying now. And then if the worst case scenario transpires, then you'll suffer then. So you're essentially suffering twice. Suffering with the worry due to the stress and the worry, and then suffering when this negative outcome is realised, if it does become realised. So you're suffering twice for the one thing. Alternatively, if the outcome doesn't transpire but you've still worried about it, and you've worried for no reason, what you were scared about, it didn't need to be frightening for you because it didn't happen. So maybe we're better off just waiting to see what happens. Again, great in theory, but it can be difficult to put into practice. But that's why it's called practice. And trust me, if you work at it, it gets easier. It truly does. Your mind is malleable. Nice and simple. Be here now. By Ramdas. Focus on the now. Focus. Stop waiting for a better moment than the one you have had in the past or are hoping for in the future, and step into the present. interesting little note here. At a business meeting or at home, surprise yourself and your family by choosing to sit in a different chair or at a different place than you usually do. It will alter your outlook and those around you by the shift in perspective. Now, I cannot vouch for this. I cannot say if it's got any merit, but I know that in terms of work, if I am working on a project or a video, if I go to the library, for example, and if I sat in the same place every day, I would start to get restless. I like variety, and even just changing environment, a different chair, or going to a cafe, it can reignite that creativity in me or that focus. So perhaps having a different seat or being in a new place can alter your outlook, shifting the perspective. It is important to be mindful of all the perspectives out there. Well, not all, but at least try and get curious about other people's perspective. It helps with your compassion, with your understanding of other people, but also yourself. You start to see the world as a bit of a mirror, understanding your own reactions and how things made you feel. Albert Einstein says, "I never came upon any of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking." Now that is interesting. I don't really know what to make quite of that. Just think outside the box, really. Okay, well maybe this will explain a little bit, by Joanne O'Malley. Everyone knows that training makes our bodies stronger, fitter and more flexible. Now neuroscience research shows that mindfulness training cultivates the innate capacities of the mind to be present, to step out of automatic pilot and to create space so we could be clearer, calmer, more focused, more creative, even more compassionate. And another little point here, you can change your mind. In a film for the BBC, Dr. Michael Mosley researched the neuroscientific results of practicing mindfulness. As a self-proclaimed pessimist, he asserted that doing the 7-week course on mindfulness and cognitive bias modification made him more optimistic, less stressed and a better sleeper. He returned to Elaine Fox's laboratory in psychology and neuroscientific research after the course to check the before and after results of the test. The results were extremely encouraging and backed up the change. People who are prone to higher levels of pessimism and anxiety have more electrical activity in the right frontal cortex of their brain. Following the course in mindfulness and CBM, the levels of electrical activity were significantly altered. So as I was saying earlier, it might seem difficult at first when you begin practicing mindfulness, but it gets easier. It gets easier to have a little bit more control over your thoughts and emotions, and science backs it up. That's quite a cute little book. I need to have a proper look on my own this for a while. It's bought in a charity shop, you can see, for £1. One of those little books that just sits there on the shelf, but I thought we could explore it today. So thank you for sharing this wee experience with me. And I hope you have the most lovely, relaxing and mindful